You guys used to get into it with MVP, you saying?
Yeah, that was one of our biggest enemies at the time.
Can you detail some of the rumbles, man? We want to hear some of that.
I mean, I remember we had this one big rumble. Um,
Welcome and welcome back to S.WigginsTV. It's your host with the most. I'm the voice of the West Coast, Worldwide Wiggins. Hey, today we gonna do things a little bit differently. I'm not even finna tell y'all the accolades. I'ma just introduce them, and you gonna find out for yourself, man. So please give it up for my boy Rollo. What's the deal, man?
what's going on with it, Wiggins?
Rollo, man. Man, let's crack things off, bro. Like you founded something, bro. You want to tell the people what it is?
Yeah, man. 1990, Horseman Junior High, man. I started and founded Bad Influence at Horseman Junior High School in 1990.
Oh,
Bad Influence started in 1990 at Horseman Junior High with me and 5 other people. You know what I'm saying? In South Central LA. My boy Hitman, my boy Noonie, that's it, out of McAllister, Texas. A couple other cats, they from reputable hoods now doing their own thing. So, I ain't really trying to throw everybody in the mix like that.
oh, okay. What made you come up with the name? And just tell us like how it started. Just tell us the whole story.
Well, it originally, before Bad Influence, we was on 80th and Halldale. There was a few of us, and we was 81st Street Hustlers. Well, originally 80 Posse. Then we started hustling and, little things like that. At that time, I was like in the 5th, 6th grade. Then we became 81st Street Hustlers. But when I graduated LaSalle and went to Horse, man, I'm tired of being under the umbrella of these older cats, telling us what to do or whatever. Let's just, formalize our own little thing. And we was on the grass court or Horseman, that's where, everybody kicked it at. And, we just started, filling through names and, little stuff like that. And I can't remember who exactly said Bad Influence, which one of the homies exactly, and we ran with it.
Okay. So, what exactly was it founded on? Was it founded with the intent of cripping, or was it like a PTSD crew?
Now, when we founded it, it was mostly, we dress fly, you know what I mean? Jabos, Gap, all the little fly gear, all the females liked us, and we considered ourselves, little hard heads at the time, but we wasn't really trying to gang bang. You know what I mean? We was just, a group of partners, we gonna come up with our own thing, but it grew bigger than we ever could imagine. By the time 91, 92, it was over 80 members, easy, from all different schools all around LA.
Oh, damn.
Even high schools.
80 people?
Yeah. And that's not exaggerating. I'm limiting it. I talked to the homie Lil Polo from Jerks the other day. He said it was about 100 of us.
Wow.
Because a lot of little other crews knew us. At that time, we was I don't know if you remember Most Valuable Player.
Of course.
They didn't like this, and there was another Easy Access. But it was during that whole KWS NBT era.
Oh,
when they was still nothing but trouble.
Yeah, wait. Slow down for 1 second. So you guys used to get into it with MVP, you saying?
Yeah. That was one of our biggest enemies at the time.
Can you detail some of the rumbles, man? We older now, you know what I'm saying, just for fun. You know, just for
Oh
laughs.
yeah.
MVP, you know I rock with y'all, man. So to detail some of the rumbles, man, we want to hear some of that.
I mean, I remember we had this one big rumble, on in the grass area, man. It was over 20, 30 people, man. I got sliced in the back of the ear that day. You know,
Damn.
my boy Hitman, you know, was knocking and bopping cats because, you know, he was a big old bulldog dude, you know, at the time, you know, knew how to throw them hands, you know, MVP cats, you know, they was doing their thing, you know, one of their top guys at the time that went to the school, and, you know, that's my folks, you know, nothing, you know, but it was a Sharad. I can't remember what they called him at the time. But yeah, man, we used to get into it a lot.
Wow. What initiated it? Like, why didn't they like y'all?
You know, I can't even remember what it started over or why it started. You know, it's been so long ago. I don't remember what was the reason behind it. You know, I just, you know, by the time it hit and they was established at Horseman and we was established, that was just one of our biggest rivals.
Okay.
Okay.
So the number one thing, we gonna come back to the MVP, but the number one thing that somebody should immediately notice when they heard you say that Bad Influence started at Horseman Junior High in South Central LA is how did it transcend over to the desert, Palmdale, Lancaster?
And see, that is what I don't really know. I don't know if it was somebody that was initially from the original BIF that probably moved down to that area. You know what I mean? Because I had seen him heard on one of the interviews, one of the cats from Bad Influence Gangsta Crip was saying, you know, they started like around 93, you know, somewhere in that era. So that was after we graduated. We graduated in 92.
Oh.
You know, and by 92 it was basically, you know, I died out. You know, I had left the BIF era. Me and Baby Nettie, JIP from SJX, you know, one of my brothers, he was my little homeboy at the time when we was for Bad Influence. You know, I went under I started under Shadow, then changed my name. Well, I started under Sneak. Lil Sneak, and he was Baby Sneak. And then I changed my name to Big Shadow, and he was Lil Shadow. You know, but by 92, we both, you know, became from Six Jerks. So I don't know who took it from LA and, you know, to the Palmdale, Lancaster area.
What made you want to join the Sex Jerks?
You know, I liked that they style. You know, they was all about the women and the money, you know, what they was doing, you know, cats was cool. I was in that area, you know, I was living on 80th and Halldale, 87th and Normandy was just down the street, you know, so, and I had a lot of good friends from there, you know, my homeboy, Lil Droop, rest in peace, that was one of my best friends as well, so he lived right on 87th.
But you would say that mobsters was worse enemies than the KODs?
Yeah, by the time I was from the hood, yeah, they was like one of our main enemies.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And you not really clear as to why that particular, you know, set, you know, started friction with y'all?
Nah, I you know, the beef started before I, you know, got put on, you know, so I don't, you know, really know all the details behind how everything started, you know, exactly to the letter. So, you know, I don't really want to speak too much on that. You know what I mean? I talked to Lil Polo the other night, you know what I mean? So, you know, we was chopping up about a few things, but I don't know the whole little rundown and how everything went, you know, to the letter. So, I can't really say.
Oh, okay. Was you there when SJX took on the Crip identity?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
I mean, when we was, well, by the time I got with Sex Jerks, they was Crips.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, we.
Speak some more on that if you can, man.
I mean, it was live, man. 15, 16. In the hood. Getting it in, man. Learning the politics of how this shit go. Big homie showing us the ropes, letting us know who the enemies is. What we need to do, what we need to look for. Just it was a brotherhood, man.
Okay. Who was was it any Bloods or any other Crip hoods that was causing friction besides the crews like, mobsters and them, maybe the Brims or the 60s? Like, who was some of the other rivals that was like, wait, y'all ain't finna start up?
Nah, I mean, we had other hoods, that, tried to push the line and, probably, wanted us to go a different way or, choose a side. But, we just stood on us, man. We stood on what we believed in. We didn't really have no super beef like that, but, we had our disagreements and, different things like that. You know what I mean? But it wasn't just like, we just out there, just hunting and, people hunting for us and, that type of deal like that. But, we did what we had to do and stood our ground when it was called for.
Did you guys have any primary color besides the blue?
Nah, it was blue. When I started, we was repping, they was repping the Sox hat real hard, because it spelled out the Six Jerks.
Yeah. And and my boy from Jerks, he the one that totally plugged me in with everybody that I know now from Jerks, man. He was telling me that, some of y'all run neighborhood. Is that accurate, or can you clear it up, or is it true?
I mean, some cats decided to, go their own way, and do, things different, put the neighborhood on it and, different stuff like that, because that's what they was already inbred in anyway. But, at the end of the day, for me and a lot of us, it's just our crap.
Okay. So can you, would you happen to know, like, what made y'all want to go past, the click era and push Crip now? Like, was it the A-Tray influence? Was it this influence? Like, was it the big homie that, like, what was...
I think it was just like big homies that was, already enrooted, in the gang life, coming up anyway, it was just probably bound to happen. You know what I mean? I don't really know what entailed in it, but I could say it was just bound to happen. South Central LA at that time, gangbanging was real heavy. It wasn't, how it is today. So it was like, get in where you fit in type thing. But I can't really say the whole dynamics behind why or, but I figured it was bound to happen anyway because, you're growing up in South Central LA, you seeing the gang culture and the gang life every day. You already enrooted in it, so,
yeah,
it ain't hard for you to find it or it to find you.
So when you started pushing the Crippin' aspect, was you guys still dressing preppy, like maybe them tapered khakis and, them collar shirts?
I mean, we always dressed above average, but we wasn't dressing preppy. We was just dressing in the finest fashion. You know what I mean? Like, you was gonna catch us in the Beverly Center shopping and different stuff like that. We was doing it like that. Trying to have the latest stuff when it first hit. Being flossy, flamboyant, the ladies loved us.
Nah, bad.
So we fit it. We wanted to make sure we we fit that part. You know, we was casual gangsters.
Nah, I feel you. Have you ever like down the line, you know, after joining Jerks, like ever reached out to like the, you know, the bad influence, you know, after they turned Crips, and you ever like, wow, I helped create a monster, like I really helped start, like just sit back and trip off of, wow, I really created a.
I didn't. I really didn't know until, you know, one day I was watching your show and I had seen it. It was probably, you know, almost maybe a year or 6 months ago or something like that. But then one of my boys had came down, you know, to see me, and he was like, hey, you know, Bad Influence still like popping, like it's a major, you know, stuff. I'm like, oh, wow, that's crazy. You know, and then I seen your episode and I was like, well, you know what? Let me reach out. Not on, you know, nothing like that, but just, you know, just my part that I played in the Bad Influence role.
Oh, okay, yeah. Did you get tempted to like, man, reach out to some of them cats like, man, y'all don't even know y'all history. I'm the one that started this, man.
Nah, you know, it didn't even hit me like that. You know, it was just like, you know, wow, I can't even believe it went to, you know, those kind of heights. You know what I mean? I mean, me for myself, I ain't even, that right there don't even buy, you know, it ain't me no more. You know, I got kids, grandkids, the whole little nine. So, you know, I was just happy to see like, wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy, you know. I can't believe it.
Now, oh yeah, shout to Big Bad, man, because he one of the people that I spoke to, man. Was how did he fit into that equation?
The You talking about the Bad Influence equation?
Yeah, was he one of the founding members?
The gangster Crips, I don't know. You know, I don't know them. I don't know who, you know, might have been there, or because, you know, it was 1990, 91. You know, I was 13, 14. So it's like it's like a vague. The name I don't know, you know, but you know they went deeper and, you know, way more than what we ever expected. So, you know, there's no telling who was there that's, you know, part of that, you know, part now. I have no idea.